Welcome back. I'm Tyler, you're watching Scarfing Scarves, and welcome to the 9th installment of Last Week Lolita News. At the top of the segment, Facebook group Lolita Humor sunk further into the undying pit of shame with a photo that even a potato would know not to post to an EGL community. The photo was innocuous enough until people with functioning retinas noticed the particular group it was shared from, and after ensuring they weren't suffering a merciful fever dream, the witnesses were left to inform the original poster of her hopefully accidental blunder. The poster replied it wasn't an accident, she had no idea how anyone could take offense, and the human race's collective IQ took a nosedive towards the direction of mildly sentient walnut. The post has since been deleted out of what I can only assume is collective embarrassment for everyone involved. Speaking of eternal mortification, Frilly Free For All left the Lolita community with one more gem before the admin wiped it off the map entirely, with one user's request for opinions on her quote-unquote Lolita dress. The poster was met with several well-intentioned suggestions that a truckload of lace crashing into an innocent pillowcase does not a Lolita dress make. She threw her emotional baggage at their heads as if it was remotely related to having the taste of a chemical lace-obsessed 5-year-old, and the commotion culminated in one commenter's assertion that all that matters is to be Lolita at heart. At which point this reporter spit blood at her screen, nothing of value was lost with the termination of the group as a whole, and I shall continue to roast marshmallows over the smoldering remains until any and all trace of that sentiment is wiped from the face of the earth as we know it. As that about wraps up the week, we return to the reanimated corpse of Anime Matsuri mayhem for part 2 of Last Week Lolita News' first special segment. To recap the events that have transpired, John Lay took $100K from Udon Pongsuk, avoided paying the George R. Brown the entirety of its fee for about 6 years, and jilted the landlord of Planet Zero out of roughly $85,000 in unpaid rent. The boyish dreams of Udon Pongsuk are in the grave. John Lay had the balls to tell him he felt betrayed, and the Houston Press had just gotten the con man by the throat in an article that blew the entire shebang open for all the public to see. John and Denise were thoroughly fucked enough at this point. However, the rabbit hole doesn't end there. For the year is 2015, and before the Houston Press took a tire iron to Anime Matsuri's reputation, the Houston Lolita community was teetering on the edge. To get a full picture of the man that pushed it off, and yet one more reason why shopping at a shop in Wonderland will get you shot with a frilly high-caliber rifle, we'll first have to venture into the experience of one seriously disaffected OG. Stephanie Tai was one of 4 moderators of the Houston Lolita community Facebook group. A moderator since roughly 2011 and a member since the beginning of the group's move from the dying format of LiveJournal to Facebook in the same year, Stephanie oversaw the over 800 members accompanied by 3 other mods. The group was created by admin Jessamine. Stephanie had the misfortune of adding John Lay in 2012, and our favorite bald con man spent the better part of 2015 treating the Houston Lolita community like an Anime Matsuri fan page. Which is to say he hijacked the group, several members were less than thrilled, and upon being told by Stephanie and her fellow mods that maybe he could keep his precious con in a single thread, he threw a fit not unlike some kind of schizophrenic toddler. The mods were less than receptive. He went crawling straight to the admin, who just so happened to be a member of Anime Matsuri's staff, and an emotional tactic usually reserved for people who can't dress themselves without adult supervision, saw Stephanie Tai and her fellow mod Taddy essentially thrown out head bow first. Of course, Stephanie didn't go quietly. Indeed, rather than spend time stewing on how an irritable, hard-boiled egg of a man got her tossed out of her own community, the OG took the initiative of airing every bit of his dirty laundry as a warning to any who might come after her. That day was June 19th, 2015. The blog post detailed the horrors that went down behind the scenes of Anime Matsuri fashion shows. Apparently the guests never get the translators they need, and the expose ended with a screen cap of sexual harassment that even the question game would think was a little heavy-handed. The Anime Matsuri head asked her about the last time she had an orgasm. Those of us with a strong gag reflex nearly hacked up a kidney, and everything might have ended at the ensuing fit of nausea had Stephanie's story not sent a ripple off to a distant land. For the XHLC mod wasn't the only one that John Lay had taken pains to creep the fuck out. Indeed, 2 days later, on June 21st, Lockshop Wigs Nina Reinders released her own tale of bald-faced terror at the hands of the Anime Matsuri head. did. The German wig maker had been pulled in by John as a potential business contact, her presence in the Lolita community made her an asset to his EGL-obsessed con, and what should have been a professional relationship swiftly went south when the married father of two obliterated enough of his common sense to send her the following about a business trip to Japan. Those of you too lazy to read should know he told her she'd better get comfortable with the idea of sharing a bed with him. Those of you with an attention span are now nauseous, and all of you combined will be happy to know that that's the end of it. Is exactly what I would say if John had the minimal restraint of your average horny poodle. However, that is not the case. There are several more screen caps to go through, and I'm sure you're just as thrilled as I am to rifle through them all. Like this one where he jokingly asked about some naked pics, or this one where he opined that her plans for world domination had better fit into some awesome lingerie, or this one where he told her about his bad thoughts he had about her at the local Victoria's Secret. Because trading sexual terms with a female business partner is totally professional and normal for a man that runs one of the top 10 anime conventions in America, you'd be crazy not to ask foreign women about the status of their underpants. Either way, looking like an escaped kumquat certainly helps confuse your prey into silence until you can say something entirely uncalled for and disturbing on a level that no business interaction should ever have to stomach. Of course, having the common sense to know when and where salacious humor belongs would take self-awareness better developed than your average indigenous mushroom. Luckily for us, John left that in the same ruinous bog he sprouted from. For fungi are defensive creatures, and not one day after Nina's post did his bald head sprout up from the decaying mess and scream bravely into the cavernous internet. For John Lay had found his voice. He was a man in a woman's world. That day was June 22nd of 2015, and as I do my utmost to contain the urge to break something with the nearest blunt object, I'd like to share some snippets of his response to the two women he harassed. Those who have yet to wipe their memory out of desperation will recall that the first sexual missive was sent to then HLC mod Stephanie Tai. The Anime Matsuri head asked about the last time she had an orgasm, and all of you who forgot about that are now reliving the experience in a sudden onset of PTSD. But that was all one-sided, for you see, John had some context to make it all okay. You can pause to read the whole thing, or trust me when I say that his entire explanation basically boiled down to it being totally cool to ask your female friends about their orgasms because you ate dinner with them once and they helped you sort merchandise, which is essentially the task equivalent of karate chopping your crotch while making mad eye contact over a double-dip banana sundae. Okay, I added that last part, but still. Let's all agree that the word orgasm is off limits to the general population unless you are directly involved in giving one. Using it when addressing female friends is freaking creepy in particular, and a married father of two should know better than to speak on sexual terms with a girl likely half his age and with twice as many reasons to find the chatter wholly unsettling. Seriously, put that word with moist and stop giving me nightmares. Of course, it wasn't over yet, and John followed up his confusing justification of the word that shall not be named with an assertion even more mind-boggling than the one that preceded it. He doesn't think Stephanie hates Anime Matsuri. He just thinks she wants attention. You know, like the type that posts daily about their event 8 months before it happens. The kind that will whine your ear off if they don't get their way. The type that would sooner swallow a large pebble before giving up the mic and ending the speech that no one in their right mind wants to hear. That kind of attention seeking? Not to interrupt the people introducing pots to kettles, John had the good sense to veer from that strange assertion just in time to thwack us all over the head with a new one, in which he solidified his victimhood as a man in a woman's world with one question. Would this still be an issue if the gender roles were reversed? Or if I was a woman talking to another woman or a man who was also my friend? To which I can only say, would this still be an issue if I was a chipmunk? What about a walnut? A Cheeto Puff? All of them are suitably bereft of the context that made this unbearably creepy in the first place. Context is a thing. It exists for a reason. And cross-dressing your argument to suit your predatory needs is going to get you about as far as lipstick goes on a pig. Naturally, he wasn't done, and while John conveniently neglected to comment on his demands that Nina cease her protests over sharing a bed with him, he did have words for the terrible injustice she did him by taking what he said about Victoria's Secret out of context. For you see, the message was actually sent after he'd taken her and a few other guests to the lingerie chain to get them gifts after the 2014 Grand Tea Party in Houston. He alleges that Nina picked a rather expensive runway set, and the Anime Matsuri head attempted to discourage her by saying that she would have to send him pics of her wearing it. Let that soak in for a minute. So it wasn't that he was sexually harassing her when he sent her that message about Victoria's Secret. He was just recalling back to a time that he sexually harassed her to try to prevent her from buying something. Of course, he states that he bought it anyway. The context did a fantastic flip in the way of making it much worse, and all of this added discomfort could have been avoided if a certain bald man would keep his fat mouth shut. His wife shared his blog post on Facebook with the phrase, "The world would be a better place without the haters." Her assertion seemed to entirely overlook her husband's habit of asking women sexual details, and the two together did their utmost to class it up to a couple of trolls on the internet. At which point the internet throws an unfiltered shit fit, the Lays realized that John's horn-dogging ways might have negatively impacted their business, and the duo do an about-face so fast the entirety of nerddom has whiplash from witnessing it. He took down his blog post after a couple of hours. The threat to his pocketbook seemed to slam some sense into his head like a sack full of quarters to the skull, and he crawled on his hands and knees back to the seething masses to report his conciliatory feelings with a single gesture. He'd taken a sexual harassment course. Online. For 2 hours. Swallow that with the note that this was the gesture he held up to the Houston Press June 29th of 2015, and you have half a pixel of the rage storm brewing in the Lolita community following the entire fiasco. Chalk that up with the fact that Anime Matsuri 2017's image is a giant dick, and you have the most fitting of ends. Because that's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for watching Last Week Lolita News, and be sure to tune in next week when we tackle the tough questions like, is angelic pretty dead to me? Should you ask your friends about their orgasms? And why, for the love of God, is there a giant dick in the middle of a page that will be visited by children, you dull-headed, unrepentant con man with the visual abilities of a nearsighted mole rat? More on whether or not the dick is a self-portrait of the Anime Matsuri co-founder next time on Last Week Lolita News. This has been Tyler. You've been watching Scarfing Scarves, and I'll catch you next time. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed the last episode of Last Week Lolita News. If you'd like to support the show, I've started a Patreon campaign, which you can find in the links below, or to the side, or wherever I decide to put it. I'm not telling you right now, you'll just have to find out. And if you want, you can support the show, which I would really appreciate, because I want to continue to give you guys videos every single week. I hope you enjoyed the last episode, and I'll catch you guys next time on Last Week Lolita News.